With no new cases of COVID-19 since April the 11th, and that's still holding today, New Brunswick is the first province in Canada to begin reopening. And joining us this morning to talk about the path back is Premier Blaine Higgs. Welcome back to your morning.
Good morning.
Phase one began on the weekend. Outdoor activities like golfing and fishing were allowed to happen. Parks reopened. Outdoor religious services also allowed to happen as long as people were in their vehicles and spaced 2 meters apart. And this is the part I find the most interesting and something I hadn't heard yet. You have allowed families to interact with what you call a two-family bubble. Can you explain for the rest of the country what that is?
Well, simply, it's related to families that would interact in a normal way, except you have to pick one. If you have multiple siblings, it can create a little angst within the family's unit. So it's not going from one to another. It's going to say, okay, I'm going to connect with like this sibling and this family, and that'll be my my unit for the next couple of weeks, or we'll see where we go from there. But it also applies to maybe neighbors, direct neighbors, that you could say, okay, these two families have agreed to participate together. It's trying to create some social interaction without widespread risk of spreading of the disease. So, but some of the confusion around it has been, oh well, I have four children, so I'll be in bubbles separately with each one of them. And no, that's not how the program works. And if you choose a family, then you both reciprocate. So it's not like you could choose somebody else and they choose somebody else. It's like you're together. It's just a way to start opening up family interaction, social interaction, and try to get people, working together again in a new way, and as we start to recover.
As somebody in another province, I'm watching closely to see how this plan rolls out for yourselves. I can't imagine what you feel like every morning checking those numbers, especially after the weekend, to find out, do we have any new cases? What does that feel like?
Well, it is wonderful. I got to say, in my certainly my congratulations goes to so many people throughout the entire province. Not only all of those essential workers that have made this possible, and our people that have followed the compliance rules and stayed very closely guarded around the public health requirements and saying and looking and working with each other and reminding each other to stay focused on the compliance. I think that we're in a good position, but we can't lose this. And our biggest risk is that people say, okay, well, we're out of the woods. Well, we're not out of the woods. We won't be out of the woods until there's a vaccine. And so we have to watch our borders. Our compliance officers have been diligent about watching our borders, and we're looking at movement around within our province. But we need to make sure that we exercise due diligence and we keep the COVID cases to zero. Now, mind you, we are expecting to see some increases with this opening. This is not to be unexpected, and we're working with public health as we monitor that. But the worst thing that could happen right now is in terms of our own complacency. If we feel that, okay, we're good to go. We are not good to go. We are in a great position. We need to keep it that way.
I want to get to phase two in just a moment, but before that, I think it's important to let people know, what will you be watching for, and what would it take in order for this to shut down, to go back to where you were before, where everything is back to isolation?
Well, on the medical side or on the testing side, if we had 3 totally independent community transmissions over a period of time, I think it's over a period of like 6 days, maybe. That would be a trigger to say, okay, we have isolated cases here in our province. We don't have any source of tracking them. There's an issue, and we're all set up to move in and do kind of a SWOT testing program. And if anything like that should happen, that would be a trigger as identified by public health. If we get obviously a sudden case and spike in our 811 calls and admissions to hospital. So all of those would be conditions that would be concerning, and we'd have to move back. But my point about the community transmission, something like that happened, 3 cases over 6 days, would be very concerning, and how we manage that could cause us to regress in our opening guidelines and to move back.
Premier Higgs, really quickly in the 30 seconds we have left, phase two is going to allow some businesses to reopen. The question here is precautionary measures, safety measures. What will need to be in place? What controls will you put in place?
All regulations that relate to what public health are requiring will have to be in place. We are working with WorkSafe Nordics. We're putting out all of our rules and regulations around that, which aren't new to businesses. They've seen them, but we have to be sure that they're ready. So we'll be working with businesses one at a time. They will show us or provide a plan to us how they're going to meet the public health requirements. And we, in turn, would say, OK, that's good to go, or no, you need to do something more. And then we'll follow up with compliance and surveillance from our safety officers.
So final word, you are optimistic, still cautious?
Cautiously optimistic would be the word, and just asking people to continue their due diligence and let's not let this get away from us.
Premier Higgs, thank you so much for joining us today. Good to hear from you this morning.
You're very welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.